Alright guys, JJK Chapter 262 just dropped, and although it's shorter than the chapters we're used to, it has a lot of interesting information that I can't wait to talk about, so without any further ado, let's just get right into it. So in the last chapter, if you guys remember, Yuta substituted his brain inside of Gojo's body and clashed in a domain with Sukuna to end Chapter 261. And immediately we see the unlimited void barrier completely shrink like in Gojo and Sukuna round 1. As explained in the chapter, the countermeasure Gojo Satoru worked out against Sukuna's domain was a shrunken barrier. For approximately 3 minutes, it's possible to withstand the effects of Malevolent Shrine beating down on the barrier from outside. So yeah, if you guys remember Gojo vs Sukuna round 1, Gojo actually lost the initial domain clash due to his barrier not being open like Sukuna's was. For sorcerers who create a barrier, it's either really hard to get in or really hard to get out. And typically having these restrictions imposed on your domain, meaning that one of the sides of the barrier is weaker than the other. Therefore, since during Gojo and Sukuna's main clash, Sukuna's open barrier was targeting the outside of Gojo's domain, which was a lot weaker than the inside, causing it to shatter completely. So in order to get around this limitation, Gojo had to shrink his domain expansion into basically the size of a basketball, and doing so would protect the outside from Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine attacks. Yuta mentions that doing switch training with Gojo allowed him to elevate his barrier techniques too. And taking into account Sukuna's fatigue, he should be able to stall the domain for 3 minutes like Gojo did. And this is really cool because this gives us insight on what happened during the 1 month time skip when people were training and switching bodies like Yuji did with Kusakabe. In this instance, it was Yuta and Gojo switching bodies as well. But now jumping back into the fight, Yuta/Gojo basically just has 3 minutes to take down Sukuna here, before his barrier ultimately gives out. But on Sukuna's side, if you guys remember, he could only manifest Malevolent Shrine for 99 seconds because he was so battle-worn, brain damaged, and just overall fatigued from all the battles he had been through thus far. Now in this chapter, we're learning that he was able to rid himself of this previously imposed 99-second time limit by restricting Malevolent Shrine's effective range to only the outside of Yuta's domain. So in exchange for this shortened range of his domain expansion, he's able to hold it for longer, which is also 3 minutes. So this battle truly is the 3 minutes to decide everything. It's Yuta's goal within these 3 minutes to damage Sukuna to the point that he can't manifest and maintain Malevolent Shrine anymore, and it's Sukuna's goal to destroy Unlimited Void and expand the effective range of his domain after Unlimited Void has been cancelled, basically just killing everybody on the spot. So now jumping into the fight between these two, Gojo tries to pull Sukuna in using Gojo's limitless technique, Lapse Blue. Sukuna then blitzes Gojo and then counters him with a straight jab right to his jaw. Surprised with the fact that he can do this, Yuta comments that he bypassed Infinity with domain amplification and questions how he's able to activate it while using his domain expansion, with Sukuna then commenting that what occurred within a domain expansion isn't able to be seen by Mei's crows, which is what all the students were watching the fight through. And I think this might have been a miss on Gege's part because Kenjaku's curse technique basically grants the user all the memories of the previous body. And we know for a fact that Gojo experienced this while he fought Sukuna during his first round with him. So simply using the argument that the crows didn't see it, meaning Yuta didn't know that this was possible, is pretty flawed in my opinion. But for those of you who may have forgotten or need a refresher, basically domain amplification is the art of surrounding yourself with essentially like a domain in order to counteract curse techniques. We see this used by Jogo and Hanami when they're trying to take down Gojo in Shibuya to get through his limitless curse technique. Although the trade-off with using a domain amplification technique is that you don't have access to any of your own innate curse techniques. So in Sukuna's case, he couldn't activate his cleave and dismantle abilities while his domain amplification is activated. But I guess since he's such a high-level sorcerer and basically just the king of all things Jujutsu, he's able to have his domain open as well as have domain amplification active. But then in the next panel, we see something really interesting in that there's a crying Rika holding Yuta's dead body. And this makes sense that she's fully manifested given Yuta's copy technique basically works through Rika herself. But I think it's very possible that she could play a much bigger role in this fight than I think a lot of us might believe. We remember in JJK 0 that Yuta basically made a binding vow with Rika to where he promised he would be with her after he died. And so my thoughts on how Rika could impact this fight is, what if she made a binding vow to save Yuta's life in exchange for her own? Basically just the reverse of what happened in JJK 0. As literally the most powerful cursed spirit we have ever seen, I can't even begin to imagine what she could trade for all of her life energy. And another thing that's not really explicit is what happened to Gojo's brain if Yuta's brain is in Gojo's body. In the final panel of the chapter, we see Yuta's head with a cut made by Shoko, most likely to exchange the two's brains. Now, it might be possible that Rika doesn't understand that Yuta is in Gojo's body and thinks the real him is in front of her, basically just dead. So if Rika sacrifices her life and brings back the dead body that is Yuta, is that gonna essentially revive Gojo and his brain instead? But nonetheless, there are just a ton of avenues and potential places I think Gege could go with this, and I'm just super excited to see how this all hashes out. But what are your guys' thoughts on Rika here in this final panel, and what do you think she'll do to help contribute to this fight? As always, thank you guys so much for sticking around and for watching and just being overall so supportive of the channel. I really appreciate you all. And if you guys are still catching up with the manga and need some refreshers, feel free to check out my review of the previous chapter right here. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay curious, anime fam. Peace.